Hi everyone, welcome to Ruth Reacts to Books. This is Season 2, Episode 6, and I'm your host, Ruxie, Ruth McGouth. Today I am reviewing David Mitchell's The Bone Clocks. So in my show, I will read you the inside of the cover of the book, like the blurb that's on the back. And then I'll tell you what I rated it, what I liked, what I didn't like, what food did I pair with this book, and then I'll tell you about my nail set and why I chose this nail set to go along with this book, other than that it matches the cover so beautifully. Let's get started. An eloquent conjurer of interconnected tales, a genre-bending daredevil, and a master prose stylist, David Mitchell has become one of the leading literary voices of his generation. His hypnotic new novel, The Bone Clocks, crackles with invention and wit. It is fiction at its most spellbinding and memorable. Following a scalding row with her mother, 15-year-old Holly Sykes slams the door on her old life. But Holly is no typical teenage runaway. A sensitive child once contacted by voices she knew only as the radio people, Holly is a lightning rod for psychic phenomena. Now, as she wanders deep into the English countryside, visions and coincidences reorder her reality until they assume the aura of a nightmare brought to life. For Holly has caught the attention of a cabal of dangerous mystics and their enemies. But her lost weekend is merely the prelude to a shocking disappearance that leaves her family irrevocably scarred. This unsolved mystery will echo through every decade of Holly's life, affecting all the people Holly loves, even the ones who are not born yet. A Cambridge scholarship boy grooming himself for wealth and influence, a conflicted father who feels alive only while reporting on the war in Iraq, a middle-aged writer mourning his exile from the bestseller list. All have a part to play in this surreal, invisible war on the margins of our world. From the medieval Swiss Alps to the 19th century Australian bush, from a hotel in Shanghai to a Manhattan townhouse in the near future, their stories come together in moments of everyday grace and extraordinary wonder. Rich with character and realms of possibility, The Bone Clocks is a kaleidoscope novel that begs to be taken apart and put back together by a writer the Washington Post calls the novelist who's been showing us the future of fiction. So, I feel like that doesn't quite explain anything about it sort of explains what the book's about, but not really. I never give spoilers on the show, so don't worry, I'm not going to give any spoilers. But the book's broken up into like 5 or 6 different sections, kind of told by different characters that sort of all kind of interrelate, and they're all sort of interrelated together. But mainly follows the story of that girl that he talked about who went to the English countryside or whatever it was in the beginning. I only gave this book 3 stars. No offense to the author. It was written very well. There are plenty of things that I liked about it. So let's talk about the things I liked about it. I really liked some of the characters. So Holly is the girl that they talk about. Holly Sykes slams the door on her old life and goes into the English countryside when she's 15. She was the character that we got to know the most throughout the book because a lot of it centers around her life, and I really liked her. There were a few other characters in the book that I really liked. So some of them were very likable people, and obviously they're the kind of the good guys you're rooting for potentially. The writing was really good. The writing itself was good. The story was interesting. It definitely was. It was interesting. However, let's kind of go on to the stuff I didn't like. So then let me get to the however. There was one particular story in the book that I felt like made no sense. I mean, it could have been a standalone story by itself, but like I didn't feel like it really added much to the overall. I kept waiting after that part of the story was over for that to kind of come back somehow and have some other tie into something else, and it really never did. And so I didn't quite understand why we had that entire piece of the story that really didn't come back and connect to much else. And the person that told that part of the story was like a kind of an awful person. And so like, not only was it kind of not fun to hear, also it didn't really do much for the story. So I feel like that could have been left out and we would have been fine. Or we could have heard, if there were certain things he needed us to know about Holly, maybe have a chapter from her daughter's point of view. That could have been cool. There was plenty we could have learned from her. I feel like that would have been better than this other guy. And maybe he just wanted to tell that other guy's story. I know when you're a writer, your characters kind of have a way of running away with the story, but that's maybe where editing comes in. So I didn't like that person's story, and I felt like that didn't really belong in the book. To me, it just felt like it stuck out, when it just didn't really belong. The book was also really complicated to the point where it was very hard to understand what it was talking about quite a lot. And sometimes that can be a challenge as well. Like at the end of the book, I had to go back to the beginning and reread parts to like go, which is fine because in the beginning you don't understand what's going on, and by the end you do. So it makes sense to go back and look at the beginning again to reread the parts, and now that you understand who the characters are and what's happening. But it was a little overly complicated to the point where it was kind of hard to understand at times. And when something can be too complicated, sometimes you can lose people. So I'm a very dedicated reader, even when I've read books that, like, there's maybe one book in my life that I've stopped reading and haven't continued on with. Most books that I start, I finish. So, but others, I could see them starting it and being like, oh my God, I cannot even understand what's happening, so I'm not going to finish it. There were parts I really liked towards the end, but I did feel like it sort of abruptly ended. I was like wanting a little bit more towards the end. It started to pique my interest towards the end in a way that it hadn't earlier and become more cohesive. And then, because by then we understood what was going on, and then it just ended all of a sudden. So I was like, oh dude, what are you doing? So I'm probably not going to read another one of his books. Maybe if we become friends, but that seems unlikely. However, I could see other people really liking it. And if anyone else reads this and you know me and we can talk, let's talk about it, because I'd love to talk about it with someone and hear what you think about the book. What food did I pair this book with? Well, I paired it with a food called Rendang. Rendang is a spicy meat dish that originates in the Sumatra Islands in Indonesia, and it has complex flavors. And I was trying to find a dish that had complex flavors because I felt like this book is super complex. Like even on the front of this book, it's got like this spiral, and I definitely feel like it's kind of a spirally book. It's got a lot going on. And so I have in the description of the episode, there is a link to a meat dish and then a vegetarian option for Rendang. So try those out and let me know how those taste. And then my nails, for my nails that I paired with this, it's kind of a two-toned one. This one is called French Riviera, and on one side it's blue and on one side it is like a silver, and they're both sparkly. And in this book, there are kind of, it sort of talked about it in the cover that she finds herself sort of in the middle of these two mystical, they called them mystical cabals. I would probably call them more like, I don't know if they're mystical cabals or not, but they are sort of otherworldly beings. I mean, they're not even otherworldly. They're worldly from our world, but they're not people that, they're not souls that we would expect. They're not what we would expect. So we expect things to happen the way, like in kind of this normal way of like, you live, you die, this, but that's not what happens with these people. So, there are these two different kind of warring tribes, I guess, of these two slightly different groups of these mystical people. And so I thought I would put like these two-toned nails on, one side blue, one side silver. I've been wanting to wear these for a while anyway, and also match the front of the book so well. And that's another reason I picked it, but it definitely made sense with the two different sides, and then Holly trying to kind of figure it out and being kind of caught in the middle. So that's the book for this week. I'll be back next week with another one. I hope you all are hanging in there and have a good week. I'm thinking about you all. Bye now.